3 Eternal Tournament Series. I am once again joined with aReNGee, and we're jumping into the reigning champion from the Season 2 Invitational. I read minds on his famous Big Homebrew list against the Overmaster on a Rakano Armory list.
Yeah, and we've got hand cam technology, that which was lost but has now been found again. So we're going to be able to see both sides of the action, which I know you guys are all as excited as me about.
Yeah, and
Looking at Go ahead.
interesting. Interesting start for both. Back everybody to round 4 of Season 3 Eternal Tournament Series. We are about to jump into a great little game here. We have Unearthly on standard Rakano plate that he has been famous for, and we have Xanthyr over here with Elysian Midrange, which is a deck that doesn't crop up that often, but can be very powerful.
And here it's doing quite well, as both of these players are 3-0 after 3 rounds, so you can't do better than that in a Swiss tournament. Unearthly, of course, on his trademark Rakano, has a pretty reasonable opening hand. Got a nice curve going on, but Xanthyr with a quick start with the Initiate answers back.
Yeah, but Xanthyr unfortunately mulliganed into 5 power and hits another 2 power off the top, so very light on interaction here, and that's going to favor Unearthly being able to push things down. And that's an interesting card. I think I spy in Unearthly's hand. Do you see what card that is on the right there?
That is a foil. The foil is important. Crown Watch Cavalry, which is a card that you don't see that much at a draft. Many of you may not be familiar with it, so I'll tell you what it does. It is a 4-power 2/2 as its base, but its summon ability, it gives another one of your units plus strength and health equal to Crown Watch Cavalry's strength and health. So right now, it's not that exciting. It's a 4-power 2/2 that'll give something else +2/+2 when it comes down. But if you hit it with a war cry, well, then you've got 2 6/6s flying around, and these buffs cannot be hit by something like Decay or Ruin. So your standard anti-attachment tech versus Armory.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, we are going to see. It depends on if Unearthly wants to get greedy here. If he actually gets greedy with the Crown Watch Cavalry, he may get punished slightly here by the Scorpion Wasp. But if he decides to go ahead and attack first, he will actually get to pick up the Scorpion Wasp with the torch and keep his board while still pushing a bunch of damage. So,
well, it depends on what your definition of greedy is. If he tosses the Crown Watch Cavalry on the obvious choice would be the Crown Watch Paladin, but if he puts it on the Champion of Glory instead, which he does, that's not going to be able to be taken down by the Wasp, and there won't be any great Wasp trades here.
Yeah, that is
trading for a 2/2.
That is true. I forgot that he had picked up the extra Fire Sigil at the beginning of his turn to give the unit the extra attack and quick draw. So given that, actually, this is looking like it's going to be a very quick beatdown for Unearthly. He's going to go ahead and push 9 right here, holding the torch. So Xanthyr already down to 7. Going to need a miracle of a top deck here to get him out of this situation.
Obelisk may be widely considered, to be an unfair card, but it's not very impressive when you don't have a board, especially into something this large. Looks like that Unearthly's early start and Xanthyr's kind of awkward draw is going to be able to take him down in short order, and Unearthly would go up to a quick 1-0.
Yeah, it turns out when you only draw 4 actual cards that are non-power against Rakano, you tend to have a hard time to beat them if they are very quick off the start, which Unearthly was there with the Oni Ronin's Champion of Glory and Crown Watch Paladin, plus the Crown Watch Cavalry for a little bit of tech in there. So we're going to get straight into sideboarding here. Going to check out what these players are going to add or remove.
So, Unearthly has a whole bunch of interesting cards here. He's got what he just took out, which is the Grenadin Drones, which is probably an evolution of his assembly line tech against the various other token decks. I imagine those Vanquishes will be staying in as an answer to the various fat units coming out of Elysian, and probably the Deep Forge plates, as they are a good answer to any permafrost that may be floating around.
Yeah, Very true. Probably going to have those come in because it is very common in these Elysian decks to go ahead and just run the full suite of Permafrost. And in fact, in the sideboarding process, we do see that Xanthyr has gone ahead currently anyway and added in an extra Permafrost. Interesting cards out of Xanthyr to go ahead and interact with. Looking around at his threats, it looks like he's trimmed up a lot of his sideboard, but we will at least see the extra Storm Links come in, the extra Permafrost, a pair of Decays to hopefully help with those plates and hammers. And I think one extra Wasp anyway. So a solid little sideboard out of Xanthyr, not having too much in there. How do you feel about bringing Praxis to play Displacer in against Rakano?
It's pretty good if they've got something suited up with a weapon, but it doesn't help against their Warcry threats. If a unit is bounced and it's wearing an attachment or 5, all of those fall off and go to the void, but the unit itself will be returned to its hand. So since Unearthly's playing the Crownwatch Cavalry tech, that may not be the most optimal choice, and it is pretty slow as a 4-power 3/2 that doesn't block all that well. So there's arguments for both sides.
Yeah, very true. And it is important that you note that that is kind of like a tech choice here. The Crownwatch Cavalries are not like incidental. Unearthly, a very well-known Rakano player, has played a lot of these builds. And I think you did key in on why the Crownwatch Cavalry is here. Not only for the war cries to hopefully get the super value, like a 4/4 Crownwatch, give 4/4 to something else, but also because in tournament setting in best of 3, we do see most decks packing some sort of attachment removal. And as noted, Crownwatch Cavalry's buff is not actually an attachment and can't be removed. So it does play around some of these attachment removals that Xanthyr would be bringing in, like the 2Ks we saw come in.
Yeah, so it looks like they're staying in. Unearthly's just trying to trim his last card. And we should be getting into match shortly. Do you think that the Elysian deck's going to be able to bounce back after that game 1, or do you think the Rakano just, another fast start and it's going to be too much?
I think it depends on Xanthyr's opening draw. If Xanthyr hits actually like a solid draw, which we unfortunately didn't see there, it's very easy for him to actually go toe-to-toe with Rakano and keep up fairly well. I mean, he's got cards like I'm almost positive Xanthyr, since it's the mid-range deck, has got the False Princes in. And he's got 4 False Princes, 4 Dawnwalkers, 4 Champions of Wisdom, big units, the 4 Sandstorm Titans, things that can help deal with the board, but still can come down early. And that's going to be important. It's going to be important how early Xanthyr can interact. And this hand with double Storm Links, the Scorpion Wasp, and the Dawnwalker, and 2 power is definitely a lot better than his last hand. You would much rather be a little lighter on power, but heavier on that early interaction, and worry about drawing into the rest of your power.
Dawnwalker a lot weaker against decks like Rakano in post-open beta games, as it previously came back from the void unexhausted, and so could block immediately if you so desired. Now, coming back exhausted, it can block once, but then it's a lot of turns before it comes back, and it's very liable to fall prey to a silence, fall prey to a silence like the Valkyrie Enforcer. So the long Dawnwalker grind game may not work out for Xanthyr quite as he desires.
Yeah, it may not indeed, and we're going to see Unearthly. Unearthly's going to have to make an interesting choice here about combat. You would assume he would go ahead and get the A space in, but that might hurt him a little bit on his game plan. It's interesting, too, that he goes ahead and down the Fire Sigil to make sure that he has power to play the Crown Watch. I kind of would have figured you would have just played Emerald Monument there, but it looks like he wanted to push the extra damage with the Champion of Glory.
Looks like he's valuing the quick draw, and he's not too concerned about something like a Lightning Storm here, valuing more the aggressive damage that he can get in.
Yeah, very true as well. We go ahead and see a silence out on the Dawnwalker. One of the unfortunate parts of having Dawnwalker in the matchup with Rakano is those 4 Valkyrie Enforcers always hanging out. Matchup very nicely able to silence that off. So we see it go ahead and trade with the Crownwatch Paladins. Xanthyr picking up a Permafrost, so this is pretty nice for him as well. He definitely he definitely wanted to see something like this to go ahead and try and stem some of this bleeding. Gets a False Prince down. Unearthly has the Vanquish to answer, but vanquishing False Prince is it's going to be the line of play, but it doesn't feel particularly good. But you are going to have to get that 5/5.
Yeah, it still leaves behind. The Vanquish will still leave behind a 1/1, but you're going to be able to attack in, and Xanthyr missing power drops is really hurting him here, as against Rakano. While the Warcries have been favorable in that they haven't stacked up too much, I think Unearthly's only floating 1 right now. You do need to get up to those big units to really slow down your opponent's attacks before they can get, your Hammers of Might, your Deep Forge Plates, and sort of take the game away. You're not going to be able to play the game on the back foot for too much longer.
No, this is very true. Notably, though, he does have the Scorpion Wasp hanging out. So that is important. And based on his prompts from Unearthly, he knows without any pauses that Unearthly not packing any torches or anything like that. So likely the Scorpion Wasp can get in. But you are correct. This puts him in a very interesting situation where he's going to have to find a way to deal with this board. And that sort of Akari is pretty big, actually. Coming down as a 4/3 is no joke.
Yeah, takes out the unit on board and lets all his guys attack through. Scorpion Wasp can deflect it, but is probably going to need to be used to take down a unit here, as Xanthyr is definitely on the back foot again.
Yeah, certainly on the back foot here. Gonna need some very good draws here, and not finding a power is pretty bad. It says you're a worthy foe, like he's going to concede, but it's interesting if Unearthly starts top decking power, which we do see, it's very possible for Xanthyr with the power pickup to get back in this game.
He's going to need it real fast, though.
He will need it relatively fast. He's got at least 2 draw steps, it looks like, currently. So that is kind of a workaround, and that gives him another chump blocker, or allows him to get the Scorpion Wasp in as a chump blocker, but that Valkyrie Enforcer going to be a bit of a problem unless he can get the Sandstorm Titan down. Gonna need to get the Sandstorm down. Ooh, Valkyrie Enforcer actually choosing to silence his own Valkyrie Enforcer to go ahead and push the extra damage this turn. Gonna force Xanthyr to make a decision on blocking, and Xanthyr going to just decide to let that game go, knowing that there's no way for him to get back into it. Going to unfortunately go down there. And that, unfortunately, was a quick 2-0. Elysian not having the best starts. Bit power flooded in the first game, little power screwed in the second, unfortunately. And Rakano is one of those decks you really cannot afford to have a lot of power troubles with. The deck is very quick off the ground, as we definitely saw in those 2 games right there. Was very capable of taking multiple games in a very short number of turns. And unfortunately, Xanthyr's fall down right there was, or his failing rather, was not being able to interact early enough with the board.
Okay, so it looks
like we have 2-0 there out of Unearthly. We are about to jump into our second game right now. It is going to be Chibikawaii on Clock Roach Control versus MooToo on Burn Queen. And I don't know if we know exactly what round they are in, or match, but we will be jumping into that game in just a second. We're going to be jumping in from Chibi's perspective, and it looks like there are some Sandstorm Titans floating around. 2 of them, in fact, to be specific. MooToo, on the other hand, he has the Statuary Maiden down and 3 unknown cards in hand, and an Obliterate goes ahead and takes care of the first Sandstorm Titan and produces him a Cudgel, which he will be able to go ahead and slap down on that Statuary Maiden next turn, though he may not, due to Chibikawaii having these Vanquishes lying around. MooToo, obviously having the deck list accessible, knows that more than likely he is not going to want to play that Cudgel into the Vanquishes.
Yeah, so Chibikawaii sitting with 2 Vanquishes stranded in hand, deciding whether or not to play the Sandstorm Titan or just sort of take a beating for a while. So we just got word that we are in Game 2, and Chibikawaii leads the series Game 2. This is still round 4 action.
Yeah, still round 4 action. Chibikawaii up 1-0, and we see a Bandit Queen coming down. Ooh, Bandit Queen plus the Cudgel on the Bandit Queen. Going ahead and pushing in for a lot of damage here. Forces Chibikawaii down to 9, and we're going to have to see a Vanquish SST come down this turn. And yep, immediately fired off by Chibikawaii. So this is going to come down to whether or not MooToo has some sort of removal Sandstorm Titan. He can start attacking with the Statuary Maiden. In theory, it's unlikely that Chibikawaii is going to want to block it with the Sandstorm Titan, but he will be forced to at a point.
Instigator comes down, and the attack goes through. Chibikawaii, choosing not to block there, draws another Twinning Ritual, which is definitely an interesting card in this deck. Pushes in for the damage, gets it through, and does elect to twin a Seraph. So we're going to see a second copy come down as a 4/5, which he'd probably be more than happy to trade for that Statuary Maiden rather than his 6/7 Titan.
Yeah, definitely. Ooh, but we see the Flame Blast out of MooToo just go ahead and putting the game away, and that is a problem with Stone Scar, is their ability to just close games out from seemingly nowhere. I mean, 7 HP, you would assume you're generally pretty comfortable at, but not going to be the case here. We are actually just going to see that game go the way of MooToo with that Flame Blast. So we will see game 3 coming up here shortly. Going to see if the players want to sideboard. Chibikawaii looks like he's comfortable in his game plan after second game. So let's go ahead and take a look at what his game plan likely was. This is a very interesting deck. So notable cards I see in Chibikawaii's sideboard that probably are coming in this type of Burn Queen matchup. Combri Healer, definitely imagine you would see some of those. They line up very well against the board, and the health gain is very important so that you don't die very quickly. Also noticing an extra copy of Harsh Rule may be a needed include. Although, interestingly enough, Burn Queen doesn't go quite
moving
as
back
wide.
to game.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
So we're here with game 3 of MooToo versus Chibikawaii. Chibi with an interesting hand that he elects to keep there. He does technically have his colors, but MooToo's coming out of the gate real fast with an Oni Ronin, and Chibikawaii does not have a third power, so he's going to either need to lean on this Lightning Storm or draw one in order to get that Combra Healer down and sort of stem the bleeding.
Yeah, and MooToo with a very early start, but as you mentioned, those Combra Healers, if they can get down on this board, are going to be very nice to interact with. Chibikawaii deciding actually to main phase the Desert Marshal, that way the Oni Ronin doesn't get the Warcry. Probably very important here. Ooh, MooToo having a Vara's Favor, being able to pick this up, forcing a little bit more damage, and this damage will be pretty important. As we saw in that last game, he had the Flame Blast for 7 with Chibikawaii exactly at 7. So Chibikawaii's health, definitely something to pay attention to.
Also ensures that he has another power drop and can start deploying the big 4 drops that the deck's known for. He's got his Statuary Maidens, his Bandit Queens, potentially impending doom.
Yeah, when you see the swing there with the Oni Ronin, that's most likely signaling the Rapid Shot. And we see it there, which goes ahead and picks up a Combra Healer. But now we see Chibikawaii with this Lightning Storm in hand to answer, and that's pretty juicy. 3 targets for the Lightning Storm will be pretty good, picking up 2.5 cards of advantage, essentially.
Yeah, especially since he's got the Harsh Rule follow-up in case his opponent has something really large to follow it up, as well as a Vanquish, depending on how many units get out of control. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lightning Storm here, but it's possible that he may just go for Combra Healer or something and try to pick up even more cards with that Lightning Storm.
This is
which
very
he elects to do so.
Yeah, this Combra Healer will hold the board down well. Unless we see a board swing here, this may indicate either another Rapid Shot or another Torch here out of MooToo. So we will see which one it is, and we do see another Rapid Shot. So this almost assuredly means that we're going to see that Lightning Storm come down next turn, hopefully with a power pickup to get the Seraph in. But Desert Marshal, not a terrible pickup either. Depends on what MooToo establishes this turn. If Bandit Queen were to come down, for example, He would be able to silence it with the Desert Marshal, or a Champion of Chaos, or Statuary Maiden. So lots of good threats he could have hit there, but looks like MooToo is very light on interaction right now, probably holding some burn in his hand, if anything.
Chibi's in a very good state. He's at 23, his opponent has no board, and is light on cards, so it's looking really good for the control deck in this matchup.
Interesting that the Vanquishes stayed in this matchup. Do you have any insight as to why? They can hit Champions of Chaos or cudgeled up units, but
I think just having the access to as much removal as possible is probably Chibi's game plan. The War Cries can push a lot of things over the Vanquished line. Any of the large units, the Champions of Chaos, of course, can get taken down. Stuff like that. The main danger units out of the Burn Queen deck, assuming they're not going wide, will be in Vanquish range. So that's probably the reason that they're still staying in, just for extra insurance.
Very good point. We see Chibikawaii picking up a Twinning Ritual that turn and pushing in 6 more damage, presenting a 3-turn clock to MooToo, and MooToo definitely going to have to find some interaction here very quickly. Seemingly not finding Chibikawaii picking up Crown of Possibilities. Now that is a card that I have seen in play only a handful of times. What about your experience with the card, aReNGee?
This used to be really popular back in the closed beta days. Crown of Possibilities combined with Clockroaches and sometimes Twin Brood Sauropod made for a very interesting deck. At around the open beta days, the Crown of Possibility was changed to not give a second skill to units with Aegis, and a lot of players sort of went off the deck, kind of disappointed. So we haven't seen it much since then, but we're not going to see much of it here either, as a Ruin instantly takes it down.
Yeah, for clarification, that was units with Echo, not units with Aegis. Aegis is just a keyword you can pick up from it, but if a unit had Echo, then the Crown of Possibilities would produce a second key. And this is actually very interesting. Chibikawaii looks like he's just going to pick the game up, right? MooToo's going to have running torches.
It's a 1-turn clock.
Yeah, no running torches. Chibikawaii actually pushing in there and ends up getting the series 2-1 with his Clockroach. What was the exact name of this list? Clockroach Control. So it was still considered a control variant, but playing Clockroach's Crown of Possibilities, some interesting Echo mechanics. That's going to go ahead and push him to 2-2 in the tournament. MooToo unfortunately falling down to 1-3 on that Burn Queen deck. So 2 very good matches we got to see right there. Unearthly first just taking a series 2-0, and then Chibikawaii ended up getting that one 2-1.